A week of honoring veterans winding up with Veterans Day Saturday. So this morning, more of our stories on local sailors, including their affection for Northeast Florida and their pride in serving.
It's a wonderful place to work and live, and it really gives me a lot of hope because America, just like these young sailors, is pretty resilient.
Our coverage from Naval Station Norfolk and aboard an aircraft carrier somewhere in the Atlantic off the coast of Florida. Plus, a former member of Congress calling out a state senator and Florida lawmakers. This is an accusation. Doesn't anyone, whether it's the senator or someone else in public service, have a right to defend themselves first?
Again, I think this culture that has been created in Tallahassee must be ended. And we've got to start with each one of us holding ourselves to the highest standards.
Gwen Graham joins us with thoughts on sexual misconduct in Tally. We also look at the tragedy in Texas a week ago and how this candidate for governor thinks we should respond on This Week in Jacksonville. And this week, former Congresswoman Gwen Graham spending time in Jacksonville. So we caught up with her about her campaign for governor, endorsements from local politicians, and scandal in the state capitol. I began by asking her to discuss the church shooting in Texas a week ago. What are your thoughts there for these people who say, what am I supposed to do at church to defend myself?
Well, isn't it sad, Kent, that people are afraid?
Yeah.
Isn't it sad? And I think we need to be doing a lot more to make people feel safe in their daily lives. And I think that's important. And yesterday was another tragedy. I remember I was actually working, I was an administrator in the school district in Leon County when Sandy Hook happened. And I was sent to an elementary school that morning, the day after. And I stood there and counted 20 little backpacks. And it has stayed with me.
Yeah.
And I get emotional when I talk about it. But we need to be providing a feeling of safe, be able to exist safely, whether you're at a concert or whether you're at a church or whether you're at a school. We have got to be providing safe communities, and that's important.
How do we do it? What do we do differently so that that can happen?
Well, I think one thing we must be doing is working together with law enforcement. My husband's in law enforcement, and I think that just making sure that we have that support, that community support between law enforcement and those in the communities that they're tasked with protecting. And I strongly believe that we need to be having a conversation about gun safety measures. Look, I mean, I'm a proponent of, the right to bear arms. It's in our Constitution, but it doesn't have to be an either-or discussion. It needs to be, what can we be doing across our state to make sure that people feel safe? That's important.
A lot of people do not feel safe. That's on the outright violence that happens in the terrible, unforeseen way. What about what's happened here with these accusations of sexual misconduct that's been happening on a national level, Hollywood producers, famous people, and then just last week we have this accusation towards someone who's in a pretty high-profile position in the Florida Senate?
Mm-hmm. First of all, zero tolerance. There should be zero tolerance for any allegations of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, sexual assault. And I believe that it is, unfortunately, a symptom of the culture that has taken over in Tallahassee, where everybody is, there. It's sort of like party time. You come to Tallahassee and it's spring break at the Capitol. And we've got to get back to just focusing on what you're elected to do, which is to represent the people of the state of Florida from wherever you're located, and doing that job respectfully of one another. And that's really important. And I think we have come so far away from focusing on the importance of the issues that we're dealing with. And it does turn into a real challenge because people are I've heard reports that, whether it's financial support that gains you some amendment to a bill or a piece of legislation, or other things that are being used in our capital city. And it's time to stop that. Zero tolerance, and we need to make sure that everybody is respected in their workplace.
So this particular accusation against Senator Latvala, your response was pretty pointed and direct. And I guess my question is, well, this is an accusation. Doesn't anyone, whether it's the senator or someone else in public service, have a right to defend themselves first?
Again, I think this culture that has been created in Tallahassee must be ended. And we've got to start with each one of us holding ourselves to the highest standards. And that is important. We all should recognize that each one of us deserves to be respected and treated in a professional manner. And if you ever cross the line, you know that, and you know it's inappropriate, and that has got to stop.
Yeah. Let me draw on your experience most recently in Washington and representing people from the state of Florida. Lots of stuff going on the federal side there, including discussions on health care, changes, reform. Tax reform now is the hot topic here, and always there's going to be this battle about what's important in the budget. How does any of that translate to what you want to accomplish if you're elected governor in Florida?
Well, you know this. This is, I think, the third time I've been on your show. I'm not a career politician. I never thought I was going to run for governor. The reason I made the decision to enter into public service and when I ran for Congress in 2012 was that I knew we had to change. I knew we had to have people who were elected and serving in office because they just wanted to do what's right. And they just wanted to help people back home. And what I'm so proud of, that the best thing you can do as a member of Congress is help your constituents back home. So I was able to return $2.5 million back to the people of North Florida while cutting my operating budget significantly. So it is possible to have people that are working hard, doing good things, working for the people that give you the honor of being there, and also being fiscally responsible with the resources you have. So I think that's something that I take to this run for governor, that I want people to know about me, that every single day I'm committed as governor to waking up and working for the people of Florida, but I'm also going to be someone that's fiscally aware that we need to make sure that any resources that are spent in the best interest of Floridians.
One of the reasons that you were in Jacksonville this week was a couple of endorsements.
Yes.
So State Representative Tracy Davis, also Warren Jones has been city council, now school board.
So honored to have their support.
Why is that important for people to know that they're supporting you?
Well, first of all, because they both recognize and believe in what I'm committed to doing, which is to restoring public education. So their support and their recognition that we're going to work together. And I'm looking forward to working with school board members all across the state of Florida, and so honored to have school board member Jones's support to making sure that we get back to a place where we're supporting our public education system. That's really important to me. And Jacksonville is really important to me. I believe strongly that a Democrat, and I will be this Democrat, that can win Jacksonville or keep it pretty even in Jacksonville, wins this election. So I'm going to be in Jacksonville all the time, and making sure that I'm meeting with people, talking with people, sharing my commitment to the state of Florida and to the people of Jacksonville.
Graham says in Congress she was Florida's only Democrat to serve on the House Armed Services Committee, where she says she fought for service members, veterans, and their families. And we're very proud to shift the focus of the rest of our show to veterans and their families. Local sailors on a mission to serve. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
If you're feeling bold, you have to try the new chorizo burger.
Oh, yeah. You can taste the chorizo in every bite.
Our creamy chili sauce.
It's just enough to give you that bit of kick.
Chorizo.
The chorizo burger is here for a limited time, only on Whataburger.
First Department 60-second rotini.
Here we go.
Hi, honey.
Hey, Mom.
Are you eating well?
Yeah, I'm actually making something right now.
New Barilla Ready Pasta. Deliciously al dente in just 60 seconds. Simply add your favorite ingredients and enjoy.
Amazing.
Hey, there you go.
I can almost smell it.
New Barilla Ready Pasta. 60 seconds to wonderful.
Elbow.
Oh, sorry, Mom.
When you've been in an accident, there's going to be a lot to deal with. And we will help you through that whole process. But in the end, our goal is to give you the financial breathing room to be able to make decisions that's best for you without feeling rushed. That you don't have to make those decisions under stress and under pressure. Let us do all the work to get you the money that you deserve. That's what we do for our clients. That's what we can do for you.
Harrell and Harrell. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
When you're in control of your finances, I just feel like you're in control of your future. Our Regions banker, Stacy, has great advice for the business and our personal finances.
You walk in, they treat you right. It makes you just want to keep going back. And we're ready to take our next step. The hottest football show in town is the Mark Brunell Show.
We've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Be part of an electric crowd at Sneaker Sports Grill as Mark and Cole break down the Jaguars all year.
We're going to have so much fun over the football season.
Each week, we'll give away some great prizes and answer your questions.
Tough question there. Right out of the gate.
Plus, you never know who will stop by.
It's your time to repay the loyalty to this fan base.
Mondays at 7 on CW17.
The Mark Brunell Show, brought to you by AC Designs Heating and Air Conditioning.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
3 different jobs in the Navy, 3 different levels of training and experience, and one common connection, Jacksonville. During this week of valor that's just passed, we want to honor all veterans by showing you these 3 sailors with an affection for Northeast Florida. One sailor saves people from a helicopter.
I'm a rescue swimmer in the United States Navy, so air crewman, some people like to call it.
Another sailor used to fly helos, and now he guides a 100,000-ton ship that can move at speeds of more than 30 knots.
So I am a commander, and my job description, I am the ship's navigator.
I met those men during a trip to Norfolk, Virginia, as part of a program organized by Naval Air Force Atlantic. They call it Sailor for a Day, and the 3-day experience included a trip out to the ocean and time aboard this aircraft carrier. One of the goals for this Sailor for a Day program that brought us aboard the Harry S. Truman is to get to meet sailors from our area who are doing amazing things, including a young man you're going to meet who went to Jacksonville University and is part of a crew aboard that plane with the radar dish atop it, an E-2D Hawkeye.
All right, so we're on the hangar bay deck of the USS Harry S. Truman. This is where we store aircraft that aren't necessarily going to be flying this day.
Brian Ferdon Jr. has multiple connections to Northeast Florida. For instance, grade school in Jacksonville, then 4 years and a degree from Jacksonville University, including a full ride. Now, not in an ROTC scholarship with the Navy, but as a trumpet player and a music major. He interned with the Jacksonville Symphony just before he graduated in 2013. So the natural question is, well, how do you go from music business major to being flying for our Navy off an aircraft carrier?
In 2013, the market wasn't looking very good for symphonies. The Jacksonville Symphony was having a hard time, and there are a lot of symphonies all around the country that were either on blackout or on strike for various reasons, mostly economic.
Ferdon applied to the Navy for multiple positions, including flight officer, and now he's an air control officer in the back of this aircraft.
So this is an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye. It does airborne early warning and command and control.
And that plane has another Florida connection. It's built at the Northrop Grumman facility at the airport in St. Augustine. Ferdon tries to play music when he can, but with his squadron aboard the carrier, he's focused on an incredibly important role.
So I'm an air control officer, so I'm responsible for maintaining situational awareness to our operation area and what we're responsible for, and then directing our assets to carry out the mission as assigned by the chain of command. A lot of times that comes in the form of doing air intercept control, directing F-18s to defend the carrier.
So the ship's navigator encompasses quite a bit. I mean, most people would think navigation of ship, right, getting us from point A to point B. There's a lot of coordination that goes into that.
Commander Jeff Ketchum manages a team to guide the ship, but his role is bigger than that.
I'm also in charge of all the bridge teams, so all the bridge watch standards you see out here that are actually driving the ship, I'm responsible for their standardization and training to ensure that they have the tools and resources necessary to function and do what they need to do safely and effectively.
Ketchum calls Jacksonville a second home, spending about 8.5 years of his time in the Navy, either at Mayport or Naval Station Jax.
Flying helicopters off the beach, Jacksonville Beach, up and down. Certainly all the operational areas there as an instructor pilot for both teaching new students how to fly the H-60, as well as operational tours out of there during my time. It's great. I love Jacksonville.
While this helicopter doesn't operate off an aircraft carrier, Ponte Vedra's Ryan Johnson has been as busy as any sailor in the past few months. Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 28 saved lives in Hurricane Harvey.
No, it was around-the-clock rescues. I mean, you had crews getting 50 rescues in a day, around the clock, literally from 6 o'clock that morning, and I was flying sometimes until 3 o'clock at night.
Helicopters like this, and this specific one, were deployed to help people, to do this, to rescue people when it came to recovery from things like Hurricane Harvey in Texas, when it came to Irma throughout Florida, when it came to Maria, Jose, other disasters like this. And the crew chief aboard a helicopter in this squadron, 28 here based out of Norfolk, is somebody from Ponte Vedra Beach. When I asked him about lives being saved, he said that he and his teammates refuse to be called heroes, even though they are. Now, Texas was the kind of mission that any rescue swimmer wants to accomplish. It's also an indication of the character for this sailor and the men and women who served the country. Especially after what you guys did in Harvey and Irma. Are you and the people around you, are you guys heroes?
I wouldn't say that, no. I mean, we did our job. I wouldn't call us heroes. Being humble is the #1 thing about being a rescue swimmer. If you want reward and you want other things, this isn't the job for you.
Do you want to hear more from veterans about what they're passionate about? Stay with us. We're expanding on the Sailor for a Day program next on This Week in Jacksonville.
I live a few minutes from the dealership, and I come in every day.
At Dick Gore's RV World, you'll enjoy the personalized service you expect and deserve.
And remember, if you don't shop us, we both lose.
I'm Robert Palmer, president of RP Funding and owner of the Jacksonville Armada. Interest rates have unexpectedly dropped, creating an opportunity to lower your monthly mortgage payment. You can take advantage of this huge potential savings by refinancing with RP Funding, and as always, I'll pay all your closing costs. I've paid over $20 million in closing costs for homeowners just like you. So now, let me pay yours. Go to rpfunding.com or call today. Go Armada.
Master the drive with Black Friday savings at Nissan. Get 0% financing for up to 72 months on 13 models, or save up to $11,260 on select models. See Star Wars: The Last Jedi in theaters December 15th.
After an accident, lawyers and their representatives are not allowed to call or speak to you without your permission. Many times, lawyers ignore this rule and directly solicit their clients at the hospital. If you've had an injury claim and your lawyer contacted you without your permission, you may be entitled to receive your entire fee and costs back. I'm John Morgan. If the law firm you hired directly solicited you without your permission, call for more information. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
Want lotion for skin that glows?
Skin that glows? My skin gets so dry and itchy, I need serious relief. That's why I use O'Keefe's Skin Repair. 48-hour moisture in one use and guaranteed relief for dry, itchy skin. Thanks to O'Keefe's, I got my skin back.
So This Week in Jacksonville is about politics and hot topics. It's also about connecting you to your community. Videographer Judd Hulon and I were the only local journalists aboard Naval Station Norfolk and a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, bringing you a look at local sailors serving their country.
I am from Long Island, New York, but I did most of my growing up in Palm Coast, Florida.
Petty Officer 3rd Class Ray Manami serves aboard the USS Baton. It's a sister ship to the Iwo Jima based out of Mayport. Now, Manami was 20 at Daytona State College and then joined the Navy. And we met as part of Naval Air Force Atlantic's Sailor for a Day program. The good-natured mass communications specialist, or MC3, was not impressed with my uniform.
Sir, I see that you're wearing coveralls. I don't see any rank yet. I don't know whether to salute you or tell you to sweep something up. But I want you to you're wearing coveralls. That's the dirty work uniform. This is the import uniform, the NWU, the Navy working uniform. The coverall is the underway dirty work uniform. So,
Am I painting the bottom of the boat today? Is that what's happening?
You know, maybe you'll be painting the side. Maybe you'll be down in the engine rooms, you know, turning some wrenches. But, you know, I'm excited for you. Let's just say that.
During the program, we transitioned from aboard a Navy base to underway with this aircraft carrier, CVN-75, the Harry S. Truman. So many of the sailors who are aboard this vessel, aboard almost any vessel in the United States Navy, is that they are young people, young men and women who are serving their country, who are being trained to do things very precisely, and you see the evidence of it. You hear the passion of it from the leaders. The Command Master Chief and Commanding Officer of the Truman spoke with us.
You know, Master Chief and I both have served for going on about 30 years for each of us, and the biggest thing that brings me to work every day, I know it brings a Master Chief because we talk about it all the time, is those young men and women that we're talking about.
And I would tell you our sailors are ready and they're training to win, and that's what it's truly about, and it's just an opportunity to talk about them at any given time to make them feel special about who they are. So thank you for coming out.
Almost 40% of the crew is under the age of 21 or 21 years old. So these are America's finest young men and women who leave their hometowns like Corpus Christi, like Jacksonville, like Baltimore, and sort of shed that past life and dedicate themselves to the service of their country. It makes their families proud. It makes us proud, and I guarantee it makes the rest of America proud. They're phenomenal young men and women, and whatever you may hear about the millennial generation, they are as tough and they are as resilient as any generation of Americans.
Give 'em hell is part of the battle flag, so I understand this is Hell's Kitchen. What does that mean? That means lots and lots of meals, some 5,400 sailors times 3 meals a day, sometimes 4 meals a day. So I'm told it's not an exaggeration. They're preparing 18,000 meals every single day aboard this ship. These two women shouted out to me when I asked in the galley, anyone from Jacksonville? We met other people across the ship who have lived in Jax or just love it. And as for their time in the Navy, love it or hate it, these sailors all seem to work together without the kind of divisions the rest of society seems to grapple with.
As you take a look at Truman, it's a cross-section of America. It's young men and women from every walk of life, every gender, every race, every religion, every sexual orientation. And really all we care about is performance. Every single day, all that matters is performance. And each of these young men and women supports each other, I think, to an extent that we don't see in a lot of other places, but is required based on the environment that we were at. It's a wonderful place to work and live, and it really gives me a lot of hope, because America, just like these young sailors, is pretty resilient and pretty confident that our way of life, as espoused in the Constitution, will continue on, and we'll just get better every day.
An inspiring time aboard the Truman and Naval Station Norfolk and learning more about the Navy. So in our next segment, one of the serious issues facing our sailors, safety. Next on This Week in Jacksonville.
Little girl in boyland, while you dwell within it, you are ever happy there. Daddy, it's Christmas! Childhood's joyland, misty.
Never let go of your dreams. The Mercedes-Benz Winter Event is back. Lease the GLC 300 for $449 a month at your local Mercedes-Benz dealer. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Attention home and business owners. Many people have suffered huge losses from the hurricane. Insurance companies often deny and lowball claims, adding more grief to this devastating disaster. If your home or business was damaged or impacted by the hurricane, visit hurricanelawyer.com to receive a free copy of our Hurricane Bill of Rights. That's hurricanelawyer.com. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
You've all heard it. Teens are risky drivers.
Wait, stop. Why? Because you got a stop sign.
But there's a science to keeping your kids safe.
The I-Team spent weeks digging through local crash reports. I break down the numbers revealing the most dangerous months, even the exact weekdays and times. It's treacherous for teens behind the wheel. And county by county, the local roads young drivers should avoid.
Crash Course, Monday at 5:15 on News 4 Jax. The Weather Authority, pinpointing inconvenient weather in your neighborhood.
The Texas church shooter's ex-wife, her first TV interview.
He told me, do you want to die?
What was it like to be married to the madman who slaughtered 26 people? Next, Inside Edition.
Monday at 7:30 on Channel 4. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
It was a deadly summer for sailors in the Navy. These two guided missile destroyers had separate collisions in the Pacific theater, both the collisions costing lives, 17 sailors total. Commanders lost their job, and the Navy demanded new training routines. 2 U.S. Navy ships were damaged, involved in collisions over the summer. The USS Fitzgerald in June, ramming into a container ship off the coast of Japan. 7 sailors died. The USS John S. McCain damaged in August during a collision with the merchant ship off the coast of Singapore. 10 more sailors lost their lives. November 1st, the Navy released its report with the Chief of Naval Operations saying both of these accidents were preventable and we must do better. I recently spoke to leaders aboard an aircraft carrier asking about the new safety training.
It's a great question, and it's no secret that we've had a couple of collisions, tragic events that resulted in the loss of some of our brothers in arms.
Captain Nick Deanna is commanding officer of the Harry S. Truman, where there are more than 5,000 people working for him and in his care. Like COs across the Navy, Deanna has been ordered to analyze and examine standard operating procedures aboard his ship.
So in the wake of those accidents, I can tell you here on board this vessel, we took 2 opportunities to reevaluate everything we do from a navigational standpoint, from an operational standpoint, to ensure that we had the proper training, procedures, and equipment in place to be able to do our job safely and effectively.
Constant training during our time aboard the Harry S. Truman. An announcement right now about what sailors should be doing. Again, there are 5,400 sailors on this ship at this point, all of them getting ready, getting prepared in case they need to provide humanitarian relief or defend the nation. We were aboard the Truman for a full day, including overnight, while they conducted training exercises, firing weapons, fire suppression, man-overboard drills, flight operations, even hand-to-hand combat for security forces on the ship. All those things seem to happen constantly during that 26 hours we were on the carrier.
There's a lot of emphasis on training, and I would like to say we've been doing things right and we'll continue to do things right.
The navigator aboard Truman is Jeff Ketchum, a pilot who served 3 tours at NES Jacksonville. Too great a reliance on technology has been a criticism from an older generation of sailors. Commander Ketchum showed me how he and his staff used new technology for navigation, but they maintain the old school methods too. Ketchum says following the accidents in the Pacific, sailors in his position have been scrutinizing how they train and maintain the highest standards.
I can tell you we spent a lot of time in the shipyard before coming out to sea. But when we were in the shipyard, we may not have been maneuvering. We sent people out to other ships to keep proficiency, and we did a multitude of simulators.
And every day, 24 hours a day, while we stand the watch, we are diligent, we are prudent, we are forehanded, and we work very hard to ensure that we are able to execute, but also to execute safely and judiciously.
Our best to those veterans serving our nation at this time. So next week, author and former Congressman Jason Altmaier joins us, plus the Speaker of the Florida House, Richard Corcoran. I'm Ket Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and online at newsforjax.com.
Now, more than ever before, more people get their news from News 4 Jax, Jacksonville's #1 source for local news.